Hello and welcome to PlayBASIC. We're just trying out some new capture software here, so we'll see if we can get some small tutorials on the website for you. Let's try and write the classic Hello World piece of code first. We'll run the code and that's what it gives us. So we can just hit any key to go back to the editor. So this first line of code here, the command print, this one here, we can actually get help on pretty much any read keyword. If you hover over the keyword, place the cursor on top of it and press F1, you'll bring up the help. It might be just outside of our let's scroll through that. The help is actually just HTML. You can actually view the HTML if you want to. It's a whole bunch of stuff on help, and they're generally cross-referenced, so you can learn about other things about the cursor position, which is how it knows where the text is going to be drawn to, and you can move the text around and do all that kind of stuff. We won't go too much into it. So print is the command that draws text and numbers at the current location or the current cursor location on the screen. The cursor can actually be outside of the screen too, and when we're printing, we're using the default font or the current font and the current cursor location. So the print is the command that does that task, and over here we have what we're going to print. In this case it's a literal string or a constant string, whatever you want to call it. We've got our talking marks which indicate to the compiler that the text between the closing talking mark is the text we want to display. So these talking marks here just tell the compiler that this is a piece of text and not code. So PlayBASIC comes down, sees the print statement, goes, oh yeah, cool, the person wants to print something, and then it looks ahead and sees we have a piece of text after it and goes, alright, you've satisfied my requirements for the print statement, and then continues on. Next it'll come down and it'll hit this weird looking command here called sync. Now sync is a bit more of a complicated one. It actually has a multiple purpose in PlayBASIC. It does double buffering, but also does things like event handling and I think some sound stuff is wrapped up in it as well, just to make sure everything sort of keeps going transparently, so you're not driving this stuff manually all the time. But generally what you do is, the way sort of I describe it to people is that sync will swap the invisible version of the screen with a version that is visible. So in computer graphics we draw to an invisible kind of mock-up version of the screen. When we're done with that, we drop it out to the screen when it's finalized. If we didn't do that, you would see the screen being built, the actual graphics being drawn all the time. It would flicker and flash, and it can be quite annoying. So sync is pretty much what we do to flip, to show results of any graphical operations. So in this case here we've used print, which is a graphical operation or graphical command. We've printed out our piece of text. Now we want to display this rendering, this drawing that's occurred in the background to the user. Once we've done that, we want to tell PlayBASIC to wait for a key, wait for any key. It doesn't matter what key the person presses. You just want to wait for that key until before proceeding on. So this command here actually locks up everything, which you've got to be careful about. So There's other ways of doing the same thing, but this is a very simple way of putting those things together. So that's what WAITKEY does. Again, once the cursor is on top of the command, we can just hit F1. We go to information about the command. There's not much on this. Perfectly honest, it's quite simple. We've got a few other versions of commands, like you look down the bottom. There's a wait no key. So sometimes we might need to have those things back to back, and there's kind of a reasoning for that in a way. A lot of the reasoning behind some of those kind of commands and command names comes from the naming convention that was decided very early on in PlayBASIC's history, which is about a decade ago now. Anyway, this our first 3-line piece of code. That's the code to print something to the screen. This is the code to show the user all of the recently drawn graphics. This is the code to make the program wait until a key is pressed before concluding. Once PlayBASIC gets beyond here, continues down to the bottom, there's nothing left, it will end and return back to the editor. So if I hit F5, or you can use the run icon up here if you want, but I normally just use the F5 key, and we are running. So PlayBASIC is now running and waiting for a key to be pressed. I can drag the window around, nothing special about it, it's just a normal Windows window. Our text is drawn in the top left hand corner. Now it appears in the top left hand corner really because the cursor position when a program starts is placed at 0, 0. That means it's pixel 0 on the screen, which is the top left hand corner of the screen. After I've printed that statement, if I type another print statement here, put the word new line in there. Now, if I run this again, the second line will appear on a line down below, underneath the first line. Now, if I print another line, the same thing will occur. I might jump forward and use a bit of a loop. So I'll go to 10. Those with a keen eye will notice this prints more than 10 lines. The reasoning behind that's a little bit more complicated, but we'll get into that some other point. Okay, so we've got a bit of code. The important thing to sort of take away from that is the cursor is progressing steps down a line every time a print command is executed. Now I can change that position. I can use, there are commands called SetCURSOR, for example, to reposition the cursor anywhere on the screen. I'll set it to 100, and we'll go print, yeah. Let's run that. Okay, so yeah is now appearing out here. Now, after I've reset the cursor, if I do another print, new line under yeah, just be a bit more descriptive. We try and run that, and it will position itself on the next line. It's reset back to its standard position. There are commands to move the cursor position, the homing position of the cursor anywhere you want, but unless you change those default, it will always use the default for you. The style of the text, or the type of text, is comes from the default font. Let's get rid of those lines there. And the default font is stored at font 1. It's loaded for you when your program starts. So you can go load font. Sorry, wrong key. It's this weird keyboard mapping on my remote. Just want you to see the indexes there. So we'll load into font 1. We'll say this font is going to be 24. No, we'll go bigger than that. 32 point. The rest of those parameters were optional, so I can leave them out. And there we have it. We've changed the style of text that PlayBASIC is using. We can change the color by using the ink command. Ink, and it wants an RGB color here. There's a few ways you can represent those things. Let's make it a red. I set ink here, then for all of the print statements below that, they will use the current ink setting. And so let's see what it looks like. Now if I move this statement down, I'll just cut and paste it, same as any text editor, down here. So hello world is going to be printed in the default ink color, which is white, and then the rest of the new line junk will be in red. Okay, well there you go. Hopefully that gives you a bit of something to look at, and hopefully this screen capture stuff worked. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your programming. Bye.